It's a tale of two ES guitars today. We're going to be comparing brothers in the Gibson lineup. One that's a little more gussied up against its popular counterpart that gets all of the attention. We're going to tell you what's separating an ES-335 with a 345, so stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. I'm Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, you turn on notifications, like our videos. Check out our link in the description for our spring store to support us with our custom swag and our podcast, the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. So today's video, we're looking at two models in the Gibson ES lineup. It's the ES-335, specifically the figured version that I am holding in this nice natural blonde color, and the not as much loved, but very cool guitar, the ES-345, which has kind of come back into the lineup. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it was, how it was different before, and how it's different still, and who else is still missing from the mix, because
there's a few.
There's a few. So, gather around the campfire, kids, and I will tell you a story. So, ES guitars, you a fan?
I'm a fan. And I feel like they're rare even though they're not.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Like, it's just such a weird thing. I mean, well, when was the last time we had a 335? And we always have them on order. How many times have we gotten one of these in the last year?
We're going to get into it today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have them on order pretty much all of the time. I'm a 335 fan. I've talked kind of on this channel. I had a 339 because I'm of a smaller stature, even though I'm barrel-chested. And I thought, hey, this would be a good way to go. I found I didn't like that guitar. Some people love those guitars. Don't get me wrong. I really wanted to keep that guitar. Taking a 335 and shrinking it down makes this closer to this, closer to this. And I found I couldn't get comfortable with it. I couldn't switch without looking down. I didn't like that. So I have a used 1992 ES-335 figured that we got in at the store that I'm like, okay, that's mine.
Yeah, it's super nice.
Yeah, and partly because it was the color I've been wanting, that nice burst. It was figured, which I'd kind of been wanting, even though it doesn't matter technically to the sound of the guitar. Sometimes you just like what you like.
Yeah.
And it was an older used one, so it checked all the boxes. But the other part of it was, if I'd wanted to just buy something from stock, we haven't had much.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, and I think we should talk about it because it explains kind of what's happened in Gibson's entire ES lineup. Because if you've been a Gibson fan for any period of time, then you'll know that what these used to fall under was Gibson Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that, just like they used to market the acoustics as Gibson Montana, because those are built in Montana, is all of the ES models were built in their Memphis factory. And that was ES models, that was archtop models, an L5, a Birdland, a 330, 339s, 335s, 345s, 355s, and so forth. And also some weird stuff like double-necked SGs were built there because...
all the redheaded stepchildren.
Yeah, so to speak. What Gibson did a few years ago, before the pandemic, hindsight being 2020, right, is they shuttered that plant and they moved all production to their Nashville factory, consolidating the electric guitar construction into one facility. And then the pandemic happened. And so initially, there were already changes that took place with that change, just because of the amount of manufacturing ability that was there and the need to focus on models that were core and sold the most and so forth. And then I think, like with all things, the pandemic kind of exacerbated issues. So these not having their specific factory, they're part of the production line in Nashville. They're still using the same machines, and whatnot. If you've never seen that, by the way, they have some cool videos that show these machines that really take these. This is a shell of maple laminate and press the shaping into it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I did go to the Memphis factory before it was, shut down, and it was awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah. See them do that and then put the binding on and then wrap it.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. So I'm a big fan of these. I like 335s. I think they may be the most versatile guitar that's out there, because you can make this guitar sound like a Les Paul, but you can also get a really nice mid-range out of it, and you have tons of access. Usually when I pick one of these up, it's a moment of like recalibration, like, wait, where am I on the neck? Because you have so much access on the neck. So they're very cool. They're very classic looking. So this is a 335, and that's a 345. Now, the 345 was introduced to be kind of a fancier version of the 345 back in the day. I think it was 58 that the 345 came out. And you can tell visually that there's still some of that going on, but some of the original differences are gone. The biggest of that is the Veritone switch. So you're familiar with the Veritone switch if you've ever seen B.B. King play.
Yeah.
And we've had some B.B. King models in here.
Yeah.
That's a 355. Again, kind of a little further upscale. Some of those came with Bigsby's. I think the only 355 that's still in their lineup currently is the B.B. King, and there's a custom shop Marcus King. So the Kings have their 355s. So the construction's pretty much going to be the same between these. So you've got a 24.756-inch scale length, mahogany, rosewood. You've got the same pickup configuration. You've got the same configuration on the controls. These are all orange drop capacitor. We'll talk about the pickups in a second. Same maple ply construction. Where it does differ is in construction that has Adirondack bracing. So both of these are semi-hollow instruments that have bracing kind of coming through the middle, that being Adirondack spruce, which is interesting.
Gives a punchier top, you know.
I mean,
Bob Taylor said that.
It's a laminate maple top pressed into shape. I don't know that there's much happening tonal wise with the Addy. Maybe a little bit. There's probably more that's affecting it than the Addy. And the other stuff is the visual appointments. So this has single ply binding. That's multi-ply binding.
Yep.
And then of course you've got just the square mother pearl inlays. You got
split parallel, dude.
Split parallelogram.
Say that 345 times fast. You know?
Say that twice after a gig when you've had too much to drink. What inlays are those? Split parallel.
Yeah, and I like the split. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things, I mean, obviously we're going to play them. We're going to hear how they sound. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert. They should sound very much the same.
Pretty much.
It may be easier for you to find a 345 than a 35 at some points because everybody wants the 335.
Yeah, it's one of those things we've talked about, like model numbers get either a stigma or like a romance attached to them. Yeah. And so people will be like, oh, I want a 335. You know what I actually want? I would really love a production 345 with a Bigsby.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and they don't typically do that outside the custom shop. And then there's different ways of doing a Bigsby on like a 335 body.
Yeah.
And there's one way I prefer over another way that they typically do it. So let's do this. Let's listen to these two guitars. And then on the other side, let's talk about the pickups, because the pickups in these are kind of unique, and we should talk about what makes them a little bit different. Check it out. Okay, so there you have it. They should have pretty much sounded. No, this one sounded hotter because it's red.
That's true.
That's true. That's it's on the internet. I really dig the '60s red color actually,
Yeah.
but I do love the figured. That's a JR guitar right there, natural.
That is a JR guitar. That's a Marty McFly kind of vibe.
It is.
What was he playing?
So he was actually, I think it was a 355 with a Bigsby in the baritone, and it's wrong because he went back to 1955 and that guitar hadn't been produced yet.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, somebody else went back.
someone took the guitar with them
Gave
in the
it to Marvin
DeLorean.
Berry.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chuck traveled back in time, was like, Marvin, here, take this. Some kid's gonna show up someday. Such a great. That part made me want to play guitar when I was a kid.
Me, Marvin Berry.
Your cousin. I love that scene. So, so let's talk about the pickups that are in these because they're a little bit different. These are Gibson's T-type calibrated pickups, but they're based upon the T-tops. Are you familiar with T-tops?
Like on my Jeep?
Like on the Camaro?
Yeah. I used to have the old T-tops back in the day. No, give me the scoop.
So 60s, this is kind of, so you had the PAF pickups initially. It's really good to kind of compare these two. So you had your PAF, patent applied for pickups. These are the Seth Lover pickups that were originally on like the Les Pauls back in the day.
The good stuff.
Yeah, it's the sound everyone kind of goes after. And then in the 60s, the T-tops came out. And the reason that they're called that is because of the change in the bobbin. So the bobbin became a little thicker, a little bit more robust, because what would happen on a lot of those PAF pickups is there were some weaknesses that would cause it to break. Sometimes during winding, the wire changed that was being wound, the gauge of the wire changed, and the magnets changed. And most of these changes, I think most people would say, happened out of experience in manufacturing, growth of the company, and the need to standardize things. Because PAF pickups were all over the place. If you try to research like what magnets are in PAF pickups, they could have been 2s, 3s,
Whatever
or 5s.
was lying around.
Literally, like whatever was lying around. We know they had 43 gauge wire. We know that the initial wire that they were, I forget the name of it, that they were winding with would break sometimes, and then they switched to polysol or away from polysol. I'm confusing myself. Anyway, they were making them however they could. And the big takeaway is that PAFs were unequally wound. There was no counter.
Yeah.
And so they had, some bobbins had more wire on them than the bobbin next to it. So they were still hum canceling, but it wasn't equal. And then the magnets could have been whatever. And then they were under these nickel covers and they were not potted. Okay, so you can get microphonic stuff and kind of squeal and weird feedback in a real high gain situation.
And
those.
for all the gearheads out there that say it's got to be PAFs, you don't even know what's going on there. Nobody does.
Yeah, it's kind of
just
a mystery
random.
box.
Yeah.
So if you look at, so I have a custom shop Les Paul 59 that has custom buckers in it. That's the closest approximation that they make to PAFs.
Love those pickups.
I love those pickups. Those are kind of weak output pickups.
Yeah.
They're unbalanced.
Yeah.
And they're not potted. And I love them.
They're great.
Okay. These are, in comparison, a more modern pickup. So it's a slightly chunkier bobbin. They're equally wound. They have got Alnico 5 pickup magnets in them. They're not potted still. So here's what you can expect on these. If you were listening to this and then you say compared this to something that had like a PAF style pickup in it, these have a little bit more output to them, but they're not EMGs.
Yeah.
You know, they're still relatively a lower output pickup. But those Alnico 5s are going to make them a bit brighter, you know, a bit more of that leading edge, not as dark sounding as like an Alnico 3 does.
Yeah.
So I think that pairs well with the 60s vibe because that's when those pickups came out. That's what these guitars really are going after. And the style of body, because you kind of get a nice mid-range anyway from the fact that they're semi-hollow.
Yeah, I loved how both of these sounded. Obviously, they sound similar. I gravitated towards this one. And it, you know, you play two guitars next to each other, you kind of play the same thing. You try to make it exactly the same. No matter what, you're going to play both of them a little differently. I just feel like this one gave me a little bit more back, but that one, I mean, and that's for the style of the demo. For that one, I think, you know, it should be very, very similar, so you could interchange these, but I think maybe a little bit warmer, jazzier kind of vibe. That's what that screams to me. This was definitely the old school kind of rock and roll.
Kind of blues rock.
Yeah. But both very, very easy to play. I love how distinct each pickup selection is. I mean, we had the amp going, as you can hear, right on the edge of breakup, and all three areas of, you know, the selector switch sounded really, really good to me.
And that's what's so great about these guitars. You know, I mean, they're simple, but they're not, because you have so much versatility in these. You know, yeah, it's a three-way selector switch, but like in the middle position, you can dial in more bridge or more neck. And by the way, for all the guitar players out there, these are called tone controls, and they change the sound of the pickup.
Feel free to roll them back.
Yeah, yeah.
Crank
Feel free
up the
to not
gain a
have it
little
on
bit.
10 sometimes.
345 or 35, bridge pickup, tone rolled off, amp cranked. That's how you do it.
That's the woman tone right there.
That's how it's
That's the
done.
Eric Clapton sound. So very cool guitars. They really comes down to aesthetics for the most part, what you want for the vibe. And I do think there's something about the 345 being the like, if you know, you know, you kind of get the head bob like, oh, okay.
Nice.
You're more of a connoisseur.
I see the split parallelograms.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, if you are the type of person, you know you want a Gibson semi-hollow and you want it to look like one of these, don't limit yourself to one model number, because you could find something right next to it, might feel better to you, might look a little cooler, looks a little different, and you're still achieving the same goal of having that sound with the pickups, the semi-hollow, and you know, 45 is just as good as 35.
Very cool. Yeah.
Thesis statement.
Well, and this is actually 10 more than that guitar.
10 more?
So there you go,
Yep.
10 more. So if you want more information about these guitars, you can go to our website at,
AlamoMusic.com.
what do you want to tell them about buying Gibsons on our website?
I want to tell you that it's not easy, but we can do it, all right? So due to antiquated dealer restrictions, there's no button that says
We're not
buy.
cool kids.
Yeah, we're not cool kids. We're the little
That's reserved
guys.
for private equity. They're the cool kids.
That's true. And we're not at that place
Gonna
yet.
get canceled in this
So
video.
if you go down to our warehouse right now, you'll see a bunch of Gibson boxes. And people know that we have them. And if you see them on the website, we have them. We have these two. You just won't be able to say, buy this here.
But actually you can, because you can chat with someone on our website. Now you can't do it at 2 in the morning, but you can do it while
I
we're
might be
open.
up. I don't know.
He might be up.
Yeah.
But we can actually make purchasing pretty easily, even despite the lack of a buy button for these guitars. So hey, support your independent music shops, buy Gibsons from places that don't have 500 employees, and enjoy a really cool guitar. So that's my shtick today. If you're new to our channel and you like stuff like this with 10 more, it should go to 11 actually. 346. Come on, get with it. Spinal Tap Edition.
Yeah.
You want to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us know what you think about these guitars, and we will see you the next time.